Well, Washington Attorney General Nick Brown, along with 21 other state attorney generals, are looking to stop President Donald Trump's plan to dismantle the Department of Education. The legal action follows a lawsuit filed earlier this month against the Trump administration's plan to eliminate half of the department's workforce.
The president's efforts to cut that department are leaving families across the country with countless questions about what this means for students, teachers, and schools overall. Joining us to continue the conversation this morning are attorneys Susan Stone and Kristina Supler, the co-chairs of KJK's Student and Athlete Defense.
Thank you both for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having us.
Of course. So as we mentioned just now, nearly 24 attorney generals are taking legal action against the Trump administration. Could we see any other potential legal challenges, and how might they impact students and schools?
Well, I think there are going to be legal challenges from special interests like the organizations that protect students with disabilities.
I think the message we want for parents to understand is that they shouldn't panic.
That's good advice, yeah, because I think a lot of people are worried about what the long-term impact of this is going to be. How would you say shifting education policy decisions to the states could lead to disparities in student rights and protections?
That's a great question that we've been often asked. And really the issue is that the federal government, the Department of Education, doesn't control curriculum. States do.
And if you're concerned about students with disabilities, President Trump in the executive order indicated that there will not be cuts to federal funding for those students. So we're hoping that it's business as usual. I know we're in Ohio, and in Ohio, the state has a very robust system for parents of students with disabilities to file grievances if they don't feel that their students' rights are being protected.
Yeah, I know every state does things a little bit differently. Can you ladies share what role, if any, would the federal government continue to play in enforcing students' rights protections in schools?
Well, the key, again, for everyone to keep in mind is that federal civil rights statutes remain on the books. So while there might be some shifts in how these laws are enforced, the laws are in fact still there, and certainly families and other groups can pursue enforcement of those laws through legal actions in courts as well, in addition to state grievance processes.
Kristina and I have a really robust practice representing students in Title IX matters at colleges and universities all over the country. We've even been on your coast, might I add, many times. And there is no indication that colleges and universities won't maintain the robust mechanisms for students who feel that those rights have been aggrieved. I think it's going to be business as usual at colleges enforcing Title IX rights, especially in the area of sexual assault and sexual harassment.
How might changes in federal oversight impact things like school funding and curriculum standards and student services, that sort of thing?
Well, as Kristina said, and I agree with my law partner, in most states, curriculum is a state issue. So the states are going to take over just the oversight that was previously done by the federal government.
And again, I just want to emphasize that while there has been much written about changes in enforcement and oversight, so far nothing has been published to indicate that funding is going to be cut. And again, that's so critical for parents to not lose sight of.
And also, the president indicated that the enforcement mechanisms that were currently with the Department of Education might shift over to the Department of Justice. So hopefully it'll be business as usual with a different department.
I know some other departments are taking on other responsibilities with the changes. Another big thing on people's minds is students with disabilities. How could the dismantling of the Department of Education impact those students' rights?
Those students and their parents should keep in mind that they have avenues available to file complaints with their school districts and then also state administrative processes.
Right now, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act is the law of the land. That law remains good unless and until Congress repeals it. I don't see that happening, or a court would rule that the act is unconstitutional, which is Not going to happen. That's ridiculous. This is the law, and parents with students with disabilities right now have the right to make sure that their school district provides those students with a free, appropriate public education. However, if a student, let's say, accepts a voucher and chooses to go to a private school, those parents would waive the right to challenge that education, presumably because they're at a school that they have confidence in.
We're telling parents, if you accept a voucher for a private placement for your child, really be sure to read the fine print so you know what you're signing up for.
I agree.
To be frank, I just want to ask, there's been a lot of speculation about what this will mean to the education system across the country with all these cuts that are being made. Are people just sort of jumping to conclusions too early without, waiting to see what the actual result is going to be on cutting the workforce with the Department of Education, that sort of thing, or are these concerns legitimate?
I think we need to take some time and see how things play out. But what we're seeing is that there is not going to be a cut to federal funding. Where the cuts are going are the federal employees at the Office for Civil Rights and those employed at the Department of Education. We are hopeful that the shift to the other departments will make sure that education runs as business as usual, but there are no guarantees and we'll have to monitor.
It's just too soon to tell. I'm sure a lot of parents and teachers alike are hoping for the same. Thank you both so much for joining us here on ARC Seattle.
Thank you for having us, and might I say, I like that fist pump you guys do.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's our good luck handshake before the show.
Number 4.
Thank you so much.
We're going to do one too.
You should.
There you go.
I love it. I love this. Lawyers in power, yes.
That's right.
Thank you both
ladies.
so much. My biggest takeaway from that is don't panic. I think, obviously there's been a slew of executive orders signed since President Trump was sworn into office again.
Yeah.
And there has been a lot of panic on a variety of those orders and issues, but this just happened. Take a pause. Let's see what plays out. But people have questions, especially as it comes to their child's education, or teachers and their jobs and what they do. Student loans, another big topic right now.
Students with disabilities, which you were right to ask that question too. I think it's right to ask the question of what's the long-term impact going to be, because certainly if you have a kid that's going through the education system and you hear about the Department of Education essentially being gutted, how is that going to impact my child is the question I think a lot of parents would have. So, we'll keep asking that, because I think it's a question that a lot of you at home are asking too, is what is the long-term impact? What is this going to mean if these cuts at the federal government continue, and they'll impact states certainly?
Yeah, we'll see.